This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the privilege of bringing in an entrepreneur who is going to help you focus, raise the productivity of your team. And without further ado, Stephen Puri talking about centered and getting focus. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pete.
Awesome. So, look, we talked right before we got on here, what's going to make a difference? What's going to get a win out of this? So taking your words and turning them into mine, why don't you talk about what you've developed on the app, why you developed it, and how it's working for hundreds of thousands of people, as far as I can tell from the internet.
I will tell you the why we're doing it is probably the most interesting part, which is there is a crisis of people who are stressed out, including people on this podcast, because there's so much to do and there's so many fantastic distractions. And we set out to solve that because my buddy Ulf and I both had this phenomenon where it's like we were stressed out a couple nights a week. Our partners were like, "You're not fun to be around." But it wasn't like we actually had to like go do too many things. Like if we were focused, we could have gotten through it if we were intentional. And that's what we did, Pete. We just said, you know what? So many smart people have written about this. How do we make this into like a free app that we could use? And that's what we did. We made a little desktop app. It has music, it has timers, all things you kind of expect from a focus app, but we added real life coaches powered by AI.
Nice. So when you talk about AI, let's kind of unravel that, because there's a lot of positives that's been said about it and a lot of negatives. Somebody may be starting to control me if the centered AI wants me to do something. How does that, the worst of all evils, but high productivity?
So right now, centered AI is very opinionated and absolutely wants to control you.
For your best, for your own good. Exactly.
It is this simple. Exactly. I don't know about you. I work at home. My buddy works at home. My wife works at home. And sometimes it's nice to sit down. I got my little to-do list and I hit play on centered. And you know what? The voice of Pete Moore, the voice of August Bradley, Nir Ayel, Kenzie Dodds goes, "Hey, Steve, let's have a great session today." And kind of greets me and starts the day. I finish something and the coach is there being like, "You know what? You finished that 20% faster than you thought you would. It's because you learned how to monotask. You're doing better, Steven. Congratulations, And
excellent. I gave up my Aura ring because it wasn't talking to me the way I wanted to be spoken to. So the settings were very refreshing.
The best part, I just described the most boring part to you. The best part is you go open YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever your vice is, and your coach, and you can pick among hundreds, is like, "Pete, do you really need to be in Twitter right now?" And you're like, "No, nice. I don't." So we keep people on track, and they finish their stuff about twice as fast, including myself. I'm not just the president of the hair club. I work here. So
yeah, I gotcha. So how did you, what's obviously you're trying to help a lot of people do a lot of, great things. At the same time that, this is a capitalist society and a business model. So what's the next evolution of this? Is this like, let's get everyone on board and then like create like our own kind of Slack down the road?
You know what? It's a really good question that you asked, because what we built initially was to say, can we get through our to-do list faster and have our afternoons to do something else, right? That worked. The unintended consequence was it reduced our anxiety level. So we found this across all of our user base. So what do we want to do next? We want to take the AI and develop it, because I think AI, like you said, Pete, it can be creepy and too intrusive, or it can be awesome.
Right.
And what we want to do with the awesome part is we want the AI to actually get to know you and be able to say to you, "Pete, you know what? You do your best work when you are writing between 8 and 10 a.m. Why don't we schedule a session tomorrow for that? And by the way, you know what? You work best to sonic caffeine playlist in the morning, but in the afternoons, you're better with that ambient playlist." And you're like, "Thank you," because it really knows you and it helps you do your best stuff and be less stressed. That's where we want to go.
When you take a look back to, working in an office, you kind of had to motivate yourself at certain times that maybe were not your most productive times. I know like right after lunch that's not the time to call me in to get something done right away. I've got a digestive tract that's correlated directly with my brain. That I need some time to chill out before I do anything next. As you've seen this push for people to be able to work from home, maybe have some more flexibility, do you think that maybe also is kind of, an important part of let's get optimization during people's optimal hours and let's kind of leave them alone, for a period of time when nothing really good's going to happen.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is I am a huge work from home fan, but I also think that human interaction is awesome.
Yeah.
So if you find out, and this is what the statistics tell you, is you could actually accomplish most of what you did in the office in 2 to 3 hours a day. If you just focus, you can knock that out before lunch. And then the open question is, what will I do with the extra time? Do I want to go have human interactions I didn't have time for before? That's what we want.
I mean, the interesting part is, sleeping well is a whole different issue that somebody else can solve. But I feel like there are times when my most productive hours are probably between like 7 and 11 p.m. And I'd say like 6 and 9 a.m. in the morning. There might be a time where, look, if I can schedule an hour of sleep, like that hour of sleep in the afternoon, a siesta, if you will, because I'm on the West Coast, is actually probably the best use of my time. How have you kind of seen either some of the data or some of the choices that people have made, maybe unconventional, but maybe conventional for them?
Well, we've found, and this is also going to include our failing, okay? So this is super transparent, is we found that when people buckle down and use centered, they feel better and they work faster. But what we haven't done is what I was describing to you, and it's exactly what you said, is going, actually, Pete, for you to have the day that you want, trust me, 3 p.m., take a nap, man. I'll wake you up from it. It's like having a best friend who's with you all day long goes, I'm going to help you live an amazing life.
I think that's great. So how did this, turn from necessarily like a hobby and like a great thing to do for people to say, hey, I'm going all in? I mean, were you doing something else at the time where you pivoted towards this, or tell us like you as an entrepreneur?
Well, I'll tell you, me, I was producing films. I was a studio executive at 20th Century Fox and DreamWorks. And a good buddy of mine, Ulf, who's a great engineer, he and I become friends. And he described this to me. We're hanging out at Sweet Green, having lunch. And he's like, I'm quitting my job. And I was like, congratulations. What are you going to do? He's like, I want to make like a to-do list, like a mindful to-do list. I'm like, that sounds boring. He's like, do you want to do it with me? I'm like, no, not at all. Right. And he is really clever. He went off and built a little prototype and sent it to me after the holidays. This was like Thanksgiving. Sends me in January, goes, hey, can you take a look at this? Give me some thoughts. Give me some feedback. And I looked at it, I was like, this feels like we grow into a flow state app. Like this does not feel like a to-do list. This could be something that's there as a companion. And it kind of grew from there. That's where it went from like, good luck with that to, dude, let's do this.
So, as you're rolling this out, are you getting pushback from any groups or any like labor unions, if you will, or, banks that say, hey, I love what you're doing, but I want that data?
You know what? You bring up an important point. A lot of people ask us straight up, is this a surveillance tool? Is my boss going to see it? Like, if you're helping me, then are you telling my boss how you're helping me? And that was one of the things we did from the very start. We're like, no, your data is private to you. It's on your laptop.
It's important.
No one gets to see that because no one would use this. I wouldn't use this. It was like a monitoring tool. Remember, Microsoft got screwed up on that like a year or two ago. And we're like, no, that's not where we want to go with this. The thing that we believe passionately is that it's fun to compete. It's fun to collaborate. Those are human emotions. So if you're having a great day, we have productivity scores at the end of every session. You can see relative to your previous days, as well as relative to your friends, how you doing? And that's super fun. People post them on Twitter. They're like, I won the leaderboard today. And we think that's probably the right level of like showing other people what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I just turned 51. So, team sports were really important to me. Winning was important, but it was usually in a team element, unless I was playing like singles, tennis or something. So I guess the question for you is, do you see different age groups kind of resonate for like gamification, like external, gamification rewards versus internal? I just wonder because like my nephew who's on like Call of Duty and whatever else, they're Fortnite, they're probably all about like the data and like the wins and everything they need to know. Whereas I'm like, hey, I remember the team won. I don't really know what else happened, but that's just
Pete. We walk our talk. our user data is so private. I don't know how old our users are. All I see is leaderboards full of people. Yeah. So I can tell you, all I can tell you is like, it's a lot of people find it fun to go like, Pete, I beat you today. And they posted it on Twitter.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's interesting to see what, if that creates positive competitiveness, or I can say, yeah, but I got an hour sleep in and you didn't,
Which is
so
totally
what
true.
is that worth?
Like I said, for us, they're like big ideas, which are, you want to compete because that's a natural human fun thing, right? You do it with your friends, you do it on video games, right? You post a high score at the arcade or whatever, right? But there's also collaboration. We built a group chat so that people can ask each other questions like, hey man, I'm wrestling with this engineering problem. Anyone else deal with this? Or I'm doing my chem homework. And people can like post an emoji, they can post a response, and starts how they feel like a community.
Mm-hmm. The one thing, and I haven't really seeked this out directly, but we were talking to this a woman who's head of operations at one of the big franchisors, and we were talking about like how she manages her to-do list, and I was talking about how I manage mine. And I actually like have my calendar is everything I need to do, and then when I'm done with it, I delete it. And I used to come from, taking a one of those marble notebooks, write everything down, and then scribble it off. Because scribbling to me was like a sense of accomplishment, almost like a therapeutic, reward for myself. So are you seeing people sharing interesting, I don't know if it's really a productivity hack, but it's a productivity method that, maybe they don't share. No one knows that I do that unless they sit next to me.
You know what? It's funny. That's such a softball question because we literally built this in the group chat. We had so many people type out like, oh, I just finished this thing, da, da, da. And other people like, congratulations, Peter. We built a button that when you click, you've completed a task. It says, do you want to automatically post this in a group chat? And it'll post it for you saying like, hey, Pete finished his chem homework in 2 hours and 10 minutes. And it shows up right there in the center of the chat. And then people can respond to it automatically because of exactly what you said. People want to go like, look what I did.
Yeah. I guess you could, as long as you don't put your personal life in there as well, or, Pete completed his second Soul Cycle class of the day. That I probably would post up there. So I'm with you.
Privacy is a big thing. There's a button, like if you never want to post ever, you can click a thing that says, never ask me again about posting in group chat. We don't.
Yeah. So, as you kind of take a look at what you guys have built versus some of the more, technical programs that are out there, I mentioned Slack before, or, maybe using Microsoft Outlook and things like that. How much have you guys thought about, and I'm asking you this as an entrepreneur having a product.
Yep.
I think some people say like, oh, I'm doing this, but now I got to kind of like move it into the mainstream where it's like, you know what, like we got to this because this is the path that we went down. Let's not like API into something else. Like, let's let this freedom ring, if you will.
The same way which we believe humans want to collaborate and compete, we think there's also that same ecosystem. So there are people who make amazing products that are collaborative to ours. We integrate with them. Hey, you want to keep your tasks in Todoist, Pete? Great. We integrate. You can just pull your tasks in. Today I want to do these 3. Boom, you do it. Asana, Linear, like Google Calendar, we integrate with all of them because they're like, you do it better than we do. What we want to do is get you in a flow and reduce your anxiety to get stuff done.
Mm-hmm. So as you kind of have gone down this path, what kind of testimonials are you getting? How's it affecting maybe domino effects that you maybe didn't say like, wow, like that's pretty cool. Like, I can't believe this led to that. There's a couple of highlights.
The biggest waste of money in our company history, by far, by a huge margin, advertising. It was like pouring money into a fire. The thing that we find almost every user comes is a personal recommendation. Yeah. So we basically stopped spending any money on ads. We just built a website. You can go to center.app/quotes, just center.app/quotes. And when we see quotes that people are like, oh, I love this thing, Bob, we just throw it up there. And that kind of proof of like a real human being saying, here's how I use this thing. Here's what I was like before. Here's what I like now. That sells it. And that is the only thing that sells it. Every other marketing thing we tried was a failure.
Gotcha. So how's the team? How big is it? How much do you feel like you need to innovate versus let people digest what you have out there?
You know what? We're a small team right now because we're not doing a lot of product updates. what we've found, and this sort of touches on what you said, is it's kind of hard to articulate what it is we do, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not exactly a to-do list. We're not just like a Pomodoro timer. We're not just like focus music like Brain or Endel or something, right? So we've been focused recently on simply saying, how can we find people that could use this? Whether it's people with some sort of neurodivergency, ADHD, ADD, that sort of thing. People who are knowledge workers who have to sit there and work for hours, engineers, designers, authors. We've been spending all our time just going out and demoing it, just saying, here's what it is. Because I believe that marketing, when you have a good product, is simply education. You don't have to sell sugary cereal. You don't have to sell girls in bikinis. All you have to do is go, this is what it is, and you can buy it right over there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very different from, we've had a couple of podcasts related to guys putting together, macronutrients and different, biomolecular, potions, if you will, if that's probably the wrong word. And it's all about education to sell their product through a lot of noise in the market. So yeah, I think a lot of companies need to stop and say, if I was just an educator, instead of trying to think that I'm a marketer, and if I'm not selling you a product, I'm educating you on how this works and how it's going to change your life.
Yep.
Using those terms differently and thinking about the process differently, you'd probably save a lot more money on marketing, because you'd actually be just educating people. And if you have 10 minutes to educate someone and they're not educated, that's on you.
Yeah. And we use that as true. Fastest way to burn money, just advertise. Just throw stuff at Facebook Audience Network and stuff. Oh my Lord.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's how has it affected your life? Whether you don't quantify it, or qualify it, and for somebody else who's looking to start a company right now, and maybe he's at Sweet Greens listening to this while they're just hanging out with their buddy. What were some of the things you'd say go for, and what are some of the things think about?
Okay, go for is right out of the gate before you build anything. Know exactly who has the problem that is painful. Be able to describe them so clearly. Not the world needs my magic potion, whatever. No, it's left-handed plumbers in Iowa, and they will pay this amount because it is a painful problem for left-handed plumbers, right? Got to know that. Second thing, the days of free money are over. Venture firms cannot just pour money into, you startup, here's $1 million seed check, because it's not zero interest rates anymore. People have other ways to make money. So LPs are no, you got to show me a better return than I can get elsewhere. So you got to have metrics right out of the gate. You got to aim for profitability, not we're just buying growth and someday we'll make money.
So, as you and your co-founder have gone down this path together, maybe just one more, seed of wisdom from someone like you who's been in the corporate world and entertainment and, seen a lot of different types of, partnerships. Some work, some don't. What are some of the things you've learned and how you kind of go about your partnership that might be telling, or, have somebody else say, okay, that's, I better pick that wisely as you guys have.
2 bits of advice that I've learned.
Yeah.
You have to understand your tolerance for risk, right? Being an entrepreneur is being on a roller coaster you do not control. One day you wake up and you're like, I just got this huge influencer who saw my product. I got 10,000 signups last night. 2 days later, you're like, oh shit, and Facebook just copied my main feature. We're screwed, right? You have to be down for that, or else you should work at a large company where it's very stable, right?
Thank you. I feel the same way. Go ahead. Second one.
Value alignment. You can talk all day long about financial and say, hey, Pete, if you do this, I'll give you $5,000. We'll make all this money. You can, you do this. You go. No, bottom line is, Pete, what do you care about in this world? And if you care about the things I care about, everything will work out. If you don't care about what I care about, there is no financial incentive that in the long run will overcome that.
Yeah, great advice. All right, man, I'm going to go get on centered. I'm going to see how I do over the next couple of days. I'm going to report back publicly on all my accomplishments and things I've left to do.
Drop a little heart the next time you complete a task.
That's awesome. All right, you'll see me on the system. We'll get all the stuff in the show notes. People will learn from this. I'll put my personal, and Dave will put his personal testimonials up there as well. And I appreciate you making things easier for people and managing through, because these days on your own, you know, there's a lot of discipline and there's also a lot of, freedom. And you got to balance it too.
It's so true. Thank you for having me on, Pete. This is
All right,
awesome.
man. Awesome.